They do get make some progress from that wind tunnel coming into action. We're just waiting for the start of this next free practice session. We're only a few minutes away from that now. Quick look through the classification as it stands. The Ferrari's heading the list ahead of the McLaren Mercedes of Kimi Räikkönen, who set the pace on Friday, once again proving consistent, not making many mistakes is young Kimi. Ron Dennis has said how cool he is, and he's already known as the Iceman within the team, and certainly his performances so far have shown that he's not making many mistakes. There's a lot of extra pressure on him this year, but we haven't seen too many faults from him so far.
Well, I think when you see talent like that, you know, there will be from time to time the odd mistake, but generally Räikkönen is the beginning of a new generation of driver who are going to come along, and Felipe Massa is another one. There'll be more that we will see over the next couple of years, and the old guard is suddenly realising they're under threat, and therefore either they're going to have to ship up or ship out.
Let's go down to Peter,
who is with Luca Colagiani. Welcome to your new position as one of the official spokesmen for Ferrari. Rubens had an engine problem at the end of practice yesterday, but quickest today. Good turnaround there.
Yeah, this morning we made good work. We made some few adjustments to the setup of the car. We are quite happy with the result of this morning's session, but we have to see what's going on in the next 45 minutes and then for the qualifying. I think there will be a very close battle with the other major teams.
Yes, I was going to say the gap between Michelin and Bridgestone here seems to be a lot closer than it was in Melbourne.
I would say the gap between the whole packages, car and tires, yes, it's closer than in Melbourne. We expected it. No surprise.
Michael had a couple of spins yesterday. Did he make any comments to you about those?
No, it's something that can happen.
Okay, let's hope they don't happen again now. Thank you very much, Luca.
You're welcome.
Well, I think Michael seemed to have it all sorted out fairly quickly. They were fairly harmless spins, but it just shows you how slippery it was when they first went out yesterday, that he lost control a couple of times. Alan McNish getting ready to come out. Of course, his race only lasted as far as the first corner in Melbourne, a great shame, but Toyota once again this weekend showing that they are a force to be reckoned with.
Yes, and just over a minute the track will be open, and Alan McNish keen to get out and maximise those 45 minutes which remain before we then have a 2-hour break and then head off to that 1 hour of qualifying, 12 laps. And if you don't get it done then it will have a major bearing on your Grand Prix on Sunday. Ralf Schumacher in the car, studying the telemetry, looking at the various sector times, thinking about individual laps. Teams take all this information, they go back into the motorhomes or the hospitality areas, they sit down and overlay personal bests in each segment and say, well, you were quick here this lap, you were slow there that lap. They try to find a way to maximise the ultimate lap time for each driver. The science that's now involved in finding time on the racetrack is so different to the generation of drivers I come from, or even for Niki Lauda and Jaguar. In fact, probably Niki wishes he could go back to that generation, because it was very much more about a driver and a car, not about the science of Formula One.
The pit exit is open, as you see from the graphic on the top of our screens. In the next 45 minutes we will see the final free practice session get underway for Saturday, which will lead of course to that all-important qualifying session. We all know that grid position can decide the outcome of a race. It has done on so many occasions, and Ferrari will then be seeking their 150th pole position. Now here's a man who didn't manage to do any time laps at all in the first part of this session, and at last they've got Heinz-Harald Frentzen on circuit.
Frentzen first car out, and really having to play catch up. He's lost 45 minutes already this morning. He's got a 45-minute session remaining, and he's going to have to do an awful lot of work and get stuck in pretty quickly. But Frentzen's still a very fast driver, somebody who to some degree is overlooked in many respects. Maybe hasn't got quite the commitment or dedication that we've seen from other of his countrymen, Michael Schumacher in particular. But in terms of out-and-out speed, if you go back to the days when Michael Schumacher, Karl Wendlinger and Heinz-Harald Frentzen were all members of the Mercedes-Benz junior team, in sheer speed terms, Frentzen was your man.
Yeah, he was very, very rapid indeed, and he still is rapid, and he's gone well here in Malaysia in the past. Last year, of course, he was driving for Jordan before that it all went apart during the season, and in fact finished in 4th place here, so that was a good effort. Meanwhile, Matt, I think you've got a chance to talk to Ron Dennis.
I hope so, Ben. Ron, thanks for joining us. been a lot of discussion at this race about tyres. Are you happy with the way yours are working out?
Things are going quite well at the moment. Just a little premature to say that we're happy. This morning was a little encouraging. We know that yesterday's times tend to reflect fuel loads, and we don't really know where we are until we're in the thick of qualifying, but this morning was quite encouraging again.
I asked the same question of Jacques Villeneuve just a moment ago. How important is the session we're on now as far as setup is concerned?
Well, at the moment we're concentrating on scrubbing our race tyres. We're interested in car setup, but not as much as optimising the tyres for the race. The car's working quite well, so we're not too concerned.
You were 1 and 2 yesterday, and everybody who doesn't support Ferrari was happy to see that. What are the chances on that being the position after the race?
Well, it's a little more difficult today, to say the least, but I think we'll be pretty competitive.
All right, Ron, thanks for your time and good luck.
Well, Ron Dennis talking to Matt there, and it's obvious that they know they're going to have a huge battle on their hands once again once it comes to qualifying, and the Ferraris will be strong. Michael Schumacher yet to be beaten to pole position on this Malaysian circuit, but McLarens have pushed him in the past. Mika Hakkinen has qualified second here a couple of years ago, and they led the race ahead of Michael a couple of years ago as well. They're just going to have to see what Kimi and David can do on this occasion.
Well, just watching Ron Dennis's body language as the interview progressed, he seemed to sort of be there's something, Ron's got something there he's very comfortable with. He was not giving anything away in terms of saying, yes, we're going to be very quick in this session. The fact that they're spending time scrubbing in race tyres is an indication that they're pretty much on top of where they want to be, and that sort of smile coming across Ron's face was something that says to me, do not be surprised if you see one or both McLarens on the front row of the grid.
Great, well, you know him better than most, John, so it's that's interesting to hear, and that certainly means that we should be in for a good battle come qualifying itself. Now, Heinz-Harald Frentzen continues around, but Ralf Schumacher is on circuit at the moment and doing a good job. He's just set the fastest first sector time. Frentzen goes 8th immediately, so that's encouraging. That's a good effort from him, and they'll be pleased after those problems that didn't see him get out on track earlier on, that he is already on the pace. But here's the man who's very much on the pace in the early part of this final free practice session of Saturday morning.
Well, Ralf Schumacher's personal best today to the 38.3, 36.9 is the time we saw from Rubens Barrichello at the end of that session, and maybe we'll get an idea of what the Michelin tyres are capable of. Well, 36.6, he is quickest by a quarter of a second. First flying lap, but look at the brake dust. Braking very late into turn 1. You can see the carbon brake dust coming out from the wheel spokes.
Yeah, well, Ralf Schumacher showing straight away that the Williams is looking good, but the McLaren Mercedes also out there of Kimi Räikkönen, and as we saw, he was going extremely quickly in this morning's free practice. We've heard from Ron Dennis, a little bit of a lock-up on the left front. That's down into turn 2. It is quite a tricky little corner, slightly off camber as well. Now through the flat-out section, turn 3, braking up into turn 4, slightly uphill as they come up here, over the bumps, and then through the right-hander, and then this John leading through to those fast sweeping corners.
A very critical part of the circuit, but coming into the one that really will sort out those that are going to be in the front of the grid and those are not, and that's between first and second sectors. We've seen the Benetton, the Renault being particularly quick through that. Kimi Räikkönen fully committed, 57.1. That's the time Ralf Schumacher has just set in his Williams BMW. So Räikkönen 57.1 to beat. Now he's not going to do it, he's nearly a second away, so that'll be a disappointment. But we don't know whether Räikkönen went out on fresh tyres. We assume that possibly that Ralf Schumacher's time was set on a new set of rubber.
Now, the aerodynamics of these cars have been talking about a bit this weekend, and how they try and get everything working. Now, there's a slight change on the barge boards on the McLaren, as we can see from the graphic here. Slight subtle changes. These barge boards are the areas around the front suspension that guide the air through the front suspension, and this new turning vane combination, it's all part of the intricate design that goes on from their wind tunnel results.
I mean, without the wind tunnel, you might as well almost pack up and go home. McLaren spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, virtually 365 days of the year working in the wind tunnel, and it's for those very, very small detail changes. It also changes from circuit to circuit because each circuit's got a different priority. Here it's a high downforce circuit, but it's also got some high speed sections on it, so they're looking for the ultimate balance, which will allow them to have plenty of grip but not make top end speed sacrifices on the parts of the circuit where overtaking is possible.
David Coulthard's on a pretty good lap here. Let's see what it's going to be when he brings it round to the start-finish line once again. He's got some personal best times showing on the data screen across the line, and he goes third fastest. So we've now got Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Kimi Räikkönen and Juan Pablo Montoya as our top 6, and we're riding on board with Nick Heidfeld.
Oh, Nick gets it. Oh, it is off the track. His back end got away. That was coming through 13, and just so committed. I mean, he's been so committed all morning. Not a problem for me. He'll drive over the gravel, get onto the grass. He'll be able to get back on track somewhere at the exit of turn 14. But certainly Heidfeld was well locked up. He'd done his 2 personal best times in the first 2 sectors. He was certainly going to see an improvement from the current 12th place that he's in. Localised yellow flag just to warn drivers that a car has gone off track. Back now on track, and those lights, there they've gone out.
So he's just brakes hard just to get rid of any gravel that might be in the side pods or whatever, checks that everything is okay, and rejoins the racetrack.
Jarno Trulli currently 14th. He's also going very quickly indeed. Personal best on the first and second segments, as is Jacques Villeneuve. So suddenly the track's come alive as Heidfeld drives back into the pits, and to apologise to the team for throwing away a potentially very good lap.
That is a tricky area of the track though, out of that turn 13. They're still turning when they get on the brakes for the relatively tight turn 14, and they're having to take off some 80 miles an hour between the 2 corners, and they're already cornering. So a tricky section, and car balance is critical. Just got away from him. Let's watch Coulthard here.
In the pit lane he's gone, but Jarno Trulli, he's gone up to 9th quickest. So virtually every car now coming across the start-finish line is actually seeing an improvement on the times they recorded just over half an hour ago.
Once again, we're seeing Ralf Schumacher with that fastest time, and he's got the highest speed trap figures around the various speed traps on the circuit. And although Jenson Button actually has got the... Oh, and there is our man as he gets off the dirt back onto the track. That's Jarno Trulli rather than Jenson Button, but he seems to have rejoined okay.
Yes, just having gone 9th quickest, he's off on turn 6. It's a very difficult corner. You're coming around 5, and then suddenly you're cutting into 6, and then down to that double turn 7 and 8, which you actually make into a single corner.
You don't think that he's feeling the pressure from his teammate perhaps? Button's having a good day, and I wonder whether Trulli's just beginning to feel a little bit of pressure there.
Well, Mr. Qualifying, Jarno Trulli certainly dominated in Jordan, and he's now finding his teammate in Renault, Jenson Button, is a born-again racing driver.
Look at this view, John, on side of Alex Young's car. Quite an impressive view, great view of that grandstand. Meanwhile, let's just take a look at what happened to Jarno.
Well, he lost it big time in turn 5. That's a very high-speed spin, and did a good job basically getting the car gathered up and pointing in the right direction. Just went onto the grass, but no damage to the car. But certainly a little bit of a wake-up call for Jarno Trulli.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael Schumacher taking a little bit of a look at what's going on around the track, inspecting the screens, watching the coverage, and seeing what he can learn from what's going on track at the moment. We've got a number of cars out there: Mark Webber, Rubens Barrichello, Alex Young, Jacques Villeneuve, Eddie Irvine, Kimi Räikkönen and Felipe Massa, all on track at the moment.
And Felipe Massa has just gone up into 10th place, an improvement for him. So we've got at least one Sauber right now in the top 10.
Rubens in the Ferrari. Doesn't look as though he's pushing particularly hard on this lap.
It's his out lap, so he's going to pick up speed now out of 14 up into 15. So Rubens Barrichello going to give us his first serious run of the afternoon.
Now they're running the 2001 car again with various updates, the car that was so successful in Melbourne. If we take a look at the front of the Ferrari, we can see the deeper undercut nose, the changes to the front section for this year, and also a new gurney flap on the front wing, just to try and provide that little bit more downforce.
But Ferrari really have worked with this car much more at the back of the car to give it the stability, rather than simply focusing on the front, which is where a lot of other teams are doing. And because the nose of the Ferrari is very, very high, probably higher than anybody else out there. It's very difficult for them to follow the trend that Sauber have started and other teams are following. Now, I'm sure that Rory Byrne and Ross Brawn and everybody in Ferrari once again are looking at models of what Sauber are doing, but right now with the current car, and as far as I can believe as well the 2002 car, they're not able to follow the route of Sauber at this point.
Taking a look at some of the replays here at turn number 2.
Well, that's as scary as it gets, isn't it?
That's pretty impressive, isn't it? Oh, and Rubens has lost it and takes it off onto the grass, keeps the engine running, and it gets back on again. Well, we saw that a lot in yesterday's free practice, but not so much today. That's one of the first spins like that.
Yes, down in turn 9 once again. That's where we saw Michael Schumacher, I think, revolve twice. It was just before turn 9 that we saw Rubens Barrichello pull off in Friday's session with an engine problem. Continues onwards, but it's still, the track is still not what I would call fully rubbered in. There's still the need for more Michelin and Bridgestone rubber to go down before we will see this track really come alive, which we hope will happen, of course, in that 1 hour of qualifying in about 2.5 hours time.
I'm sure it will, John. I'm really looking forward to the qualifying session today. I think we're going to get a lot of answers to questions that really didn't get fully answered in Melbourne because of changing conditions and that rain that fell during qualifying. Of course, it did stymie an awful lot of people in terms of their attempts to put in quick laps later on in the session.
Very interesting line taken by Barrichello. He knew the lap, he had lost time and the lap wasn't worth it. He took an unusual line to give him the maximum speed off the corner, which would be a different line to what he would have done if he was actually on a flying lap. So it'll be interesting to watch Barrichello in the first sector. In fact, what he's done is done his personal best by 1/1000th of a second. So out of something unfortunate has come something rather positive for the Brazilian.
Montoya coming out of the pit lane now. Last year he had his first experience of this track, of course, and qualified in 6th place, which wasn't a bad effort at all. We're just taking another look at what happened to Rubens here.
Well, that was pretty much, the back end was breaking away as he just turned in, and there was really little Barrichello could do. All he was able to do was just keep the engine running, which he did successfully, make his way back to turn 15, get a good exit speed, and he's on a pretty good lap, but certainly it's a personal best in the second segment for Rubens Barrichello, and he's now got to get his way around to the part of circuit where he made that error 1 lap ago.
Michael Schumacher now climbing aboard the Ferrari, so he's coming out. We've got just over half an hour to go in this session as they build up towards some quick laps at the end in preparation for qualifying. Now, Olivier Panis in the BAR Honda. We know that the Honda engine isn't producing quite as much power as was hoped for from both Jordan and BAR, but well, maybe they can still extract a little bit more speed out of it. We're on board with Rubens Barrichello, and he goes across the line, remains second fastest, 37.079. That's a fraction off what he did earlier on.
Yeah, about 1/10 of a second. Barrichello basically back to the pace that he had achieved. That was, of course, in the 45-minute session a little while ago. His best lap so far, that 37.0, but an indication that given a fair run, he can certainly improve on 36.9. He's got to find a 0.3 of a second to get close to current fastest Ralf Schumacher in his Williams BMW.
Here comes Panis then, 15th fastest for the Frenchman at the moment. He's raced here in Malaysia twice before, qualified 10th place last year, driving for BAR, but had an oil fire on the first lap and spun off in his own oil.
Montoya completing his out lap. He's about to start a first flying lap of this particular run. Montoya in 6th place. And let's look and see how the Colombian approaches turn 1 on the brakes pretty late. Again, car turns in, looks more stable than some we've seen of late. Good tight, gets the car tucked in, plenty of grip from the Michelin and the Williams chassis. Now picks up speed all the way through that very long turn 4. Coming up hard on the brakes.
Looks like Lev flicks it in there a little bit to that one, doesn't he? And now back on the power and accelerating hard and building up speed through the fast sweepers at 5 and 6. Meanwhile, just a quick look at Kimi Räikkönen staying cool, back with Montoya, and you could see that he got a little bit sideways on the exit of turn 6.
But Ben, he's so far quickest of anybody this afternoon, and that first sector 25.1 seconds.
Let's ride on board a moment. Oh, that was a bit of a mistake. You could see how wide he was off the apex.
and again he had to delay getting back on the power because the car was out of shape and it was off the rail, the ultimate line for that particular corner.
Now,
take Montoya long to get back up to speed, does it?
It doesn't, no. This is the tricky bit where you're braking on the turn here, turn 14, and now this brings him onto the Penang Straight, building up the speed. It's a bit of a breather for the driver, up to 200 miles an hour, more or less, just below 200, and then on the brakes into this very wide final turn, picking his braking point. That's the critical point for that corner, and now accelerating out, using the full horsepower of this BMW V10 engine. Crossed the line and he's gone fastest.
Green Grand Prix.
His boys down there in the pit lane, very quick to tell him that he's number one and fastest sector on the first one.
What's strange, they give him the sector colours. Purple, of course, is fastest of anybody. Green on the data screen means it's your personal best. And it seems that Montoya really needs to know that. He likes to be like a child wanting to be praised for doing something very well. So Montoya needs that information. He seems to thrive on knowing that he suddenly is the quickest in any given sector, or all three.
Teammate Ralf Schumacher now gets ready to come out as Montoya is using every inch of the road and a little bit more as well, but he keeps it under control and he's looking very, very fired up in this session.
But this particular lap, it's not anywhere as well. I talk anywhere nearly as quick as he did previously. It's probably about a tenth of a second slower.
Well, it would have been helped by that trip across the grass. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher now in the Ferrari, seeing that some of the other drivers beginning to put in a bit of effort. He's got a car just ahead of him there. That's Enrique Bernoldi moving out of his way, no problem.
Michael Schumacher, personal quickest in terms of speed in the first sector. And Michael Schumacher, I mean, you just never, ever, ever underestimate, man, you're locking up like that. But he got the car in, he recovered it. He had that wheel dragging, slightly unloaded under braking, and the camber picking up on the inside wheel. Gets the car back in the right direction, back on power, and now coming through 12. Very quick indeed, 13. And then there's difficult braking into 14, because you know you're really braking on a curve, and it's very easy to let the back of the car get out of control. And of course, the consequences are you lose time at best and maybe end up being off track at worst.
Let's watch him under braking here from top speed into turn 15. Traction control working here as he hits the throttle hard on the exit, and then powering on across the line, and he remains fifth fastest at the moment. 37.045. That is his best time to date, but doesn't really change his position much.
This is into turn 9. He drags that left-hand front wheel, recovers extremely well, doesn't let it affect him. He was strange in that second segment. His actual speed as he came into turn 14, he was quite a lot slower in speed than those around him. And whether that was a deliberate thing or whether he just didn't have the feeling the car was able to accept any more speed, be interesting to see when he gets a little bit later in this session. And certainly he's got to do a qualifying run per se.
Nick Heidfeld working the steering wheel a little harder perhaps than Michael Schumacher was. Just watch him through the hairpin. That was neat and tidy, but you can see there's that little bit more steering effort required as he comes around. And Heidfeld, where is he at the moment?
16th.
Down in 16th position, yeah.
But it's his teammate Massa who's up to 10th place, once again just displaying you where this young talent's coming from. And the talent is
in the back of the Williams. Here we go, Heidfeld's going to improve. He comes up to 15th place, so not a great improvement, but a slight improvement.
Well, I'm sure Nick Heidfeld is not particularly happy to be running down as low as 15th when his teammate is in 10th place. But of course, again, two cars maybe running different programs at this point. We've got now some 24 minutes of the session remaining, and I'm sure Nick Heidfeld will be very, very keen to get back into the pits. But somebody who's done a very fine, I mean, unbelievable. Enrique Bernoldi in the Arrows up to 8th place.
That is a good effort indeed. There we are, confirmation of that 8th place. Enrique Bernoldi just ahead of Pedro de la Rosa, Giancarlo Fisichella, then Massa and Jarno Trulli. But all of them fair way off the lead pace, which has been set, of course, at the moment by Juan Pablo Montoya. But now his teammates out there, Ralf Schumacher, and he does go well around this Malaysia circuit, does Ralf. He went well last year, pushing brother Michael in qualifying. In the end, both Michael and Rubens just out-qualified him, but he certainly made them worry. and I wonder if they can do the same.
35 now.
There we are, look, 304.1 kilometres per hour. That's the best top speed we've seen on the back section of the track. And coming around to start another quick lap. Let's see what Ralph does rather, as he crosses the line. At 38.036, it's this next lap we want to keep an eye on.
Well, further down the field, Fisichella, he is currently now in 10th place and doing a personal best, and we're seeing that from Eddie Irvine also down in 17th, and still struggling with that Jaguar. They just don't know what to do to get grip, to get speed. As we have a little look and see what David Coulthard was doing coming into turn 1, I suspect it's a bit of an oversteer. Yes, it is almost predictable. You can almost assume that everybody on a replay going to turn 1 is going to have a major oversteer on the entry into the corner.
Right, now we've seen that the Ferraris have had a brilliant time here in Malaysia in the past. They're competitive again, and I gather we've got the chance to speak to Jean Todt. Jean, I hope that things are going well for you. You must have been pretty encouraged by the performance of the car, particularly in yesterday's free practice. Jean Todt, can you hear me, Jean?
Felix, can you repeat the question?
Yes, Jean, you must be encouraged by the performance of the car, and how do you think it's going to perform in qualifying this afternoon?
Well, I think we should be able to compete for a strong position on the grid. I think it seems to go quite smoothly, even if we know that competition could be harder than what it was in Australia.
Now you have a choice, I believe, of 2 Bridgestone compounds this weekend. Have you been able to decide which of those Bridgestones you're going to run now in the qualifying session?
You will not be surprised, but I'm not going to answer to you.
Well, I didn't ask which one, but I just wondered if you'd actually made the decision as yet. Have you made the choice?
We have quite a clear idea about what we want to do.
Okay, thank you very much, Jean, and good luck in the session this afternoon.
Well, Jean Todt being very cagey indeed, as you would expect him to do, because this is not just a sport, it is an intense business, and Ferrari, as the lead Bridgestone team, in fact in a different division to the remaining Bridgestone teams, really, I wonder if they feel now, without the support of McLaren, are they sort of getting ganged up by McLaren and Williams? Well, they're still running the 2001 car. They've got the 2002 car still under development back in Italy, and looks like it's going to be a lot tougher here this weekend than it was in Melbourne 2 weekends ago, not just in the race but clearly in qualifying. And if they do find themselves being out-qualified by Williams and McLaren, then we're going to have to see something very special coming from Ferrari in terms of race strategy. And of course with Michael Schumacher, anything's possible.
It is, yes, he is the master, and as we've said already, the master of Malaysia. With his 3 pole positions, he's going to take some beating here this afternoon. Takuma Sato on track now. We haven't seen him feature quite as high on the timesheets. Yesterday he did a very good job indeed, but today he's down in 14th place. I don't think we're going to worry about that. He's looked very confident. It's just a question of putting the laps together and deciding how much fuel they're running. We are getting into the final 20 minutes of this session, and again we're going to see more improvements in times coming through.
Well, that was actually an improvement in time for Sato, but it didn't actually change his position. And let's have a look and see how Jenson Button, currently in 7th place, doesn't show any signs in this first sector of an improvement on the personal time or even overall. But again, the level of confidence we're seeing from the young man from Froome in Somerset, transformation I've seen in Button in the first 2 events of this year. Different man altogether, certainly a lot more, I think, mature as a racing driver and as a man as well.
Yeah, well, we'll keep an eye on what he's doing here, the 22-year-old. 35 Grand Prix to his name now. Most of those from last year he can pretty happily forget. They didn't work out at all well. His best finish, a 4th place during his season with Williams in 2000. So he wants to get back to that sort of performance. Qualified 3rd at Spa in 2000 in the Williams. And now it does look as though he's got a car that at least he's going to be able to get into the top 10 again. Whether he can go a bit further, well, you never know. With the way it's going this weekend, he could well try and get into the top 6.
Well, further down the field, it's really a bit of a mix and match. We're just thinking about Jaguar and the misfortunes of the team, but Pedro de la Rosa is currently 11th quickest, Irvine down in 18th. Now that may all change as we come to the end of this session. We've got just under 18 minutes of it remaining. Eddie Irvine, who's a known qualifying specialist, will certainly want to do something more than he's doing right now.
Looking at Kimi Räikkönen now, as the Finn puts in some more quick laps in the McLaren Mercedes.
And did that car look good through turns 5 and 6? You could see tons and tons of grip for the Finn. I tell you, I just cannot get over how alike Räikkönen and Mika Häkkinen in terms of their seating position, their head position, apart from the colours of their helmets. It's almost uncanny. The two Finns are so similar in the way they tilt the head forward as they turn into a corner.
Yeah, pretty similar in terms of outright speed as well, by the looks of things. Very rapid indeed. Just watching replay of Alan McNish going out, and Jacques Villeneuve's had a spin. Oh, and he's still trying to sort it all out as Jenson Button comes past. Alan McNish is down there as well, and I think they've managed to get through safely. As we on board with Kimi Räikkönen, let's see whether this is going to be an improvement. He's just got the final corner to deal with, and he's just set the fastest segment time on the second sector, so this could be an improvement, John.
Yes, he had a personal best on the first sector, so Räikkönen currently 6th, nice second.
He goes second fastest, and only just under a tenth of a second slower than Juan Pablo Montoya. Does look, the way things are going, as though we're ending up with a 3-team battle here for the top spot. It's Ferrari, McLaren and Williams, and great slow motion there of Kimi clipping the apex cone down at turn 2.
Well, Rubens Barrichello is the 4th of the cars currently on circuit. He's got personal best in the first 2 sectors. Barrichello also looking to see an improvement. Williams, McLaren, Williams, Ferrari, McLaren, Ferrari, top 6 dominated by those 3 teams. It's Jenson Button, the first of the best of the rest in his Renault. Yeah,
let's just go on down the list a little bit. Behind Button, Fisichella, Bernoldi still with that impressive time, and David's gone off. David Coulthard's in the gravel. The yellows are out immediately, and he's off. 14, yes, on that same area that we saw Heidfeld go off.
And he's beached. He is beached. It is the end of the session, 15 minutes remaining. David Coulthard has thrown it into the gravel trap, and he will have lost the opportunity to go out and do an ultimate one flying lap qualifying simulation. Let's look and see. Well, he gets it wrong coming through 13. He's just in no position to control the car under the brakes. Been big commitment from David Coulthard. He hadn't even done a personal best or a quickest, but certainly Coulthard under pressure from his young Finnish teammate, and this is his response. It is again, what has David got to do to get a session where it goes smoothly? Well, first of all, he's got a spin. That's the obvious answer.
Yeah, I mean, that one was down to him. You have to say, John, that was a mistake. That was a driving error. Commitment, sure, but overdone, and that was not a good time to do it with 15 minutes to go in this session. He really needed the track time. He needed to see what the car's going to be like in qualifying. He's not going to have the chance, and technical director Adrian Newey, seeing that, knows that they will have to get their sums right when it comes to qualifying. That's when it really counts. That's when the pressure will truly be on, but it just makes his job that bit harder this afternoon.
Well, he did not need that. David Coulthard needed a session where he could run through trouble-free and do that one run at the end of the session on a set of tyres that either are just really a couple of laps old or a brand new set. He's lost that opportunity. He's given that opportunity to his teammate, advising the removal of his car from that gravel trap, that he's just going to lift it up clear of the gravel and take it away. But look, you've got about 7 or 8 marshals around it, making sure the car doesn't start swinging and banging into the bucket on the front of that vehicle that's taking it to safety. In the meantime, yellow flags, those 2 yellow dots on the top of your screen indicate a localized yellow, and only when that vehicle is now safely behind the barriers will those lights go out.
David seems to have spent more time directing marshals how to pick the car up this weekend than he has out on track. Yesterday the car packed up on him and he had to have it towed back and ended up pushing it down the pit lane. and now it's had to be towed away again as a result this time of a mistake.
Now, tell me, Ben, are slicks back in Formula 1 or slicks back in Formula 1? That was the front tyre of Alan McNish's Toyota on Michelin. I can't see the grooves in those tyres.
Wow.
Oh, suddenly we're all coming out as a surprise.
It's all hidden away now.
I'm not surprised. And Pierre Dupasque standing just with one of those engineers thinking about what's going on. He said in the press conference, I've got no problem with our tyres comply with the regulations, and I've no problem, I'm not worried.
No, he's not worried at all, and he's not worried about the heat either, although it's not quite as hot today. He said the tyres are perfectly okay in the high temperatures. The mechanics might be suffering somewhat. He said the people might be dropping, but the tyres are okay. They'll survive whatever the track conditions throw at them. Another look here at Coulthard's off a moment ago.
It looked strange when he came through 12. It didn't look like a problem at all, but into 13 he just then ran wide, caught the grass. Of course, that then put the car into a spin. Watch Adrian's eyes. I'm sure there's look, there he goes, eyes roll in the back of the head. I would love to know what he's saying, but I'm afraid we couldn't broadcast it.
Now we're watching Juan Pablo Montoya. That's the same corner. He goes wide but keeps it all under control. And following Olivier Panis is the car just ahead of him there. But that shouldn't make too much difference. I don't think this is a particularly quick lap for Montoya. We're not seeing any... And in fact, yeah, he's getting some communication from the team. I think he's trying to find a bit of space.
He's either looking for space, certainly way down in speed. What you do in a lap when you're looking for a clear lap is you back off and take turn 15 very slow in, but really get on the gas in the middle and exit of the corner. That's what Montoya did. The traffic ahead of him, and Montoya has got Sato Panis and Alex Young, so a lot of traffic ahead of him. Heidfeld coming up to complete a lap. He's been quick and he's gone 9th quickest. First time I think in this session he's been faster than his teammate.
1 minute 38.320, but John, you know, that's nearly 2 seconds off the lead pace of Montoya, and those guys may well still be able to go quicker than that. It just shows that there is quite a gap. I think in qualifying today, it's a longish track, isn't it? 3.4 miles. We're going to see quite a big gap between the first and the last.
Well, I think certainly you'll see a gap between the top 6 and then the rest of the field. While many drivers have got the capacity to go out and do one blinding quick lap, at the end of the day you've got pretty much the top drivers in the top teams. Those that are in Sauber and Benetton and other teams, Jordan, will be coming along in the future. They will be the ones that will elevate themselves up into that privileged position to drive for McLaren, Williams or Ferrari, but in the meantime they've got to do a good job out there, because while they may not win the race, there will be opportunities to pick up points, and you never know, if it does have changeable weather, there could be the odd podium position on offer as well.
Montoya's lap continues, but let me tell you, he's not actually going that fast. His sector times are not showing anything special. Meanwhile, his teammate comes out, Ralf Schumacher. We've got just over 10 minutes of the session to go, as you can see, and we are into the last bits of preparation for qualifying. Oh, and there's a problem with one of the arrows.
Yeah, Benaldi jumps out of his car. Well, Fernand Frentzen, in fact. And there's been a little bit of a problem. It looked like a smoother of fire in the airbox. Certainly extinguishers were dumped around the engine cover very rapidly indeed.
Frentzen has a little look. And, well, disappointing that, because they're showing little flashes of inspiration, if you like, but every time that something seems to go well for these guys, they then have a problem. Frentzen down in 12th place at the moment. Yeah,
but teammate Benaldi rounds out the top 10. So this car is a quick car. All they need is just to get a trouble-free session, and for sure that Arrows will find themselves knocking on the door along with Sauber and the Renault team.
Well, this was the view Ralf Schumacher had as Heinz-Harald Frentzen leapt out of his machine.
Well, no time getting Frentzen out. He sort of undid those belts and sprinted out of the car. It may have just been a little localized fuel spill or something, or some liquids getting on the exhaust pipes once again.
Now Takuma Sato, he's on the early part of the laps, coming through turn 9 at the moment, through the two right-handers at 10 and 11, known as the Kenya Lake corner, and now you can see him getting on the power and a little bit of correction, building up the speed towards the... Oh, look, very sideways for Sato, but he gets it back. Oh, wow.
Well, I have to say, talk about the save of the year. That is without doubt the save of the year. Sato's reactions to catch the car. He got a massive twitch on in the exit of 12, went across the grass. Now, David Coulthard, you should look at this young man. Maybe his reactions are somewhat sharper than yours, but I mean, what a save.
That was amazing, wasn't it? And I hope we get to see that once again through the very, very fast turn 12 there. Carrying about 120 miles an hour through here, pulling some 3.4 G. Now, John, let's just have a look at it once more.
Well, just this is coming up to the entry into turn 1, but that was unbelievable. I mean, I thought there's no way that Sato was going to hold a car. I mean, there we see, coming down into the corner, just he throws the car around, he's got so much confidence, pitches it into the corner. All of a sudden, maybe did he catch just the edge of that rubber, but how did he keep the car going? Even when he got onto the grass at the edge of the track, he still managed to keep it under control. I mean, the guy must be a genius, or he's just the luckiest man out there at the minute.
Well, he certainly attacks, doesn't he? We saw it in Melbourne, we saw him attacking, and he did go off in the end, but that proved to be a gear change problem that sent him off. It's great to watch him out there. He's providing some of the best entertainment, I have to say, of the season so far in the early stages. But this man is going very quickly. Ralf Schumacher, a 25.279 on that first sector. That's about a tenth off the fastest in that sector, which Montoya set a little while ago. So now let's watch him here, up the hill, gets a good clean exit there, no major problems.
It's an easy part of the track, that's the exit of turn 9, to lose time. It's easy to overdrive going into it as well. I've seen so many drivers guilty of going in too quick on the brakes, back because I'm loaded. And again, I was going to say Ralph right on the edge.
Stable though, wasn't it? Looked good through there. And now through turn 14 and building up the speed. This is where we tend to see these cars hitting the top figures on the speed trap down here. Ralph already got that top speed, although not quite as quick this time. Maybe they've added a little bit of wing to give him some more downforce.
I think also maybe he's done a number of runs on this set of tyres. So we've just got 6.5 minutes remaining, whether Ralph will complete another lap or decide to dive into the pits very quickly and just go for that one shot on a fresher set of tyres. So difficult to judge what teams are doing. They really don't want people to be too aware of what's going on. As you look into Ruben's eyes, and Ruben's looking at the screen ain't going to get you going any quicker. The only way that's going to happen is if you go out and do the time.
Yeah, Rubens hasn't done an awful lot of laps actually. He's done a total of 15 laps between this morning's 2 sessions. Meanwhile, let's have a look on board with Alan McNish. Alan got a bit crossed up there.
You hear the traction control cutting in as McNish. He's really not had much of a session so far. He's certainly 22nd, but a bit of an improvement. McNish 6 places further up, 16th. So Alan playing catch up as we go back to Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah, Kimi Räikkönen. Meanwhile, Mika Salo has popped up into 10th place. That's a good effort, isn't it, in the other Toyota? Räikkönen on a lap at the moment which is not particularly fast, I have to say, looking at the sector times on the data screen. No green or purple figures coming up, but we do have the opportunity to look from just behind the steering wheel straight at Kimi Räikkönen.
So I think it's at the exit of this corner, turn 15, that we'll see a major effort coming from Räikkönen. That lap was really just a lap, an out lap, nothing particularly spectacular, 138.3. Now he's got to maximise everything he's got: grip, horsepower, traction. No sign of the oversteer we've seen from a lot of people turning into turn 1. Quite a lot of lock. Again, just waiting to pick up the throttle.
Great view, great sound as well from that Mercedes V10 wailing away. And certainly seems to be producing some pretty good horsepower now. There were some concerns in testing initially. People said, well, was it producing the horsepower? But I have to say, it looks like it's producing the goods at the moment, and Räikkönen has been quick all weekend so far. Now then, comparison between the two Ferraris. Rubens Barrichello a bit slower than this man, Michael Schumacher, but Michael only down in 6th place at the moment. I wonder if we're going to see a quick lap from him at the end of the session.
Well, with 4 minutes remaining, if they're going to do it, they've got to start thinking about it. They're at different parts of the circuit. Michael's down in turn 11, Barrichello down in turn 12. So it'll take them another 20 seconds to come across start-finish line for Barrichello, and about 30 seconds for Michael Schumacher.
Yes, there's a good many cars out there at the moment, and danger of getting held up, of course, by other cars. Fisichella joins quite a long list of drivers that have just come out onto the circuit to make the most of this final 3.5 minutes of free practice, the last little bit of running that they'll get before the official qualifying session begins.
And Felipe Massa and Nick Heidfeld The two Saubers now 9th and 10th, and literally about a 50th of a second separating the two Saubers. Pretty even Stevens there.
That's amazing, and once again Massa continues to impress with his performance. Michael's working hard on the steering wheel there, isn't he? Soaring away a little bit.
I just wonder how much these teams are really holding back. I would have expected to see the 135.2 set by Michael Schumacher for last year's pole being eclipsed at this stage of this session, but so far no one's shown any indication. I just wonder, are they all playing sandbag and they're just not prepared to show their hand until it really matters, which of course will come in about 2 hours time at the beginning of qualifying.
Maybe saving tyres and not deciding to put in a really quick run at the end of this session. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Car looks very, very good through there, and let's take a look coming up for a split time in the moment. Let's take a look across the split there, just a fraction slower, and we've got a car off, and that's Mark Webber, who's run wide in the Minardi.
Yeah, coming out of turn 6 once again. That's the corner that caught Mark out in Friday's session when he had a problem with gear selection. And again, makes his way across the gravel. Hopefully he won't drag too much of it back onto the track, because you're coming into that double turn 7 and turn 8. And we go back to Michael Schumacher.
Webber down in 21st position at the moment. Qualified 18th in Melbourne, remember. That was a very, very good effort indeed. Might find it a bit more of a struggle to qualify that well at this track. The Asia-Tech engine perhaps not producing the same sort of horsepower figures as most of the other engines down there.
Michael Schumacher 6th quickest. Now that is not what we expect to see Michael Schumacher.
No, that's right, John. But I just wonder, they don't seem to be putting new tyres on the Ferrari that much. We gather that the Williams car's putting new tyres on each time it goes out, pretty much. And whether they're scrubbing tyres in for the race or what, I'm not sure. But Michael there, look at the super slow-mo. Great pictures, aren't they?
And of course you can see some of the deflection in the tyre. There's probably more actual movement these days in the tyre, the front tyre being particularly tall and not a low profile. One of the things about Formula 1 is that you see road cars with very low profile tyres, yet Formula 1 have got aspect ratios which are something you would have seen maybe 20 years ago.
Coulthard on his way back, once again following his car. We've seen that quite a lot, David Coulthard on the back of a moped. I hope that that's the last time we're going to see that for this weekend.
And Michael Schumacher being chased by Kimi Raikkonen. Again, Michael Schumacher not on a particularly quick lap. Kimi Raikkonen again not doing anything out of the ordinary. Raikkonen, of course, second, and Michael Schumacher still 6th.
Well, it's interesting. There we are, Michael through that quick section. It's interesting. Everyone just seems to be not rushing to put in some blinding laps at the end of this session. They are going to save it all up for qualifying. They're just playing a bit of a waiting game at the moment, and we're going to have to see what happens. Montoya's on a pretty good lap himself as Michael comes through the corner, and the checkered flag only 10 seconds away, so he should just cross the line before the checkered flag comes out.
Well, he's going to do it. Raikkonen won't. 3 seconds. Michael Schumacher cuts it as fine as that. I don't think Raikkonen has he may have done it just literally at the point where the flag came out. We'll have to see. But Montoya, fastest of anybody in the second segment. Montoya all alight as he comes through 12, 13. Look at the work on the steering wheel. On the brakes, down the gears into turn 14. Good exit from the Williams.
Yeah, builds up the power. Now he just has to rely on that horsepower to get him down this straight as quickly as possible. The Penang straight into turn 15. You can see 299.5 kilometres per hour on that occasion. Just a few clicks off his best of the session. And out of that final corner, is this going to improve on his previous best? Oof, look at that, 5,000.
Okay, not improved to be on purple sector 2. You were 1/10 off sector 1 and 2/10 off sector 2.
10-4, I know. I made a mistake in turn 10, must do this. Turn 10, we brake too late and 11 too early. So the car is much better.
Now that's...
Okay, copy that. Remember, call your brakes on the in-lap. Call your brakes on the in-lap.
I had backs off. I'm going to push again to get the temperature sorted.
And just remember those brakes. I know we want the car pressures as well.
Good information being relayed by Juan Pablo Montoya there, John.
Yeah, he's pretty happy with the car. He's got a setup which he finally seems to be comfortable with. and that was certainly reflected with that second sector time, the quickest of anyone we've seen over the 2 days of running. Michael Schumacher less. So I mean, all I can believe is that Ferrari and Schumacher are just sandbagging. They have no intention whatsoever of giving any indication as to what their potential is, and they want to try and wrong foot McLaren and Williams to make sure that when Michael does go out and do one of those blinders, that the two other teams are not in a position to respond. As he goes in for that little bit of scrutineering, it's always one of the frustrations for a driver, the random check that you're required to stop for. And Michael waiting for his turn to have the car quickly run over by the FIA scrutineers to make sure that everything is the team. Oh, it's actually, maybe it is the tech centre, but he hasn't driven into it, he's just stopped outside it. The Ferrari engineers bring down their covers for the wings to make sure the photographers, who are gathering like flies around a cow pat to get a photograph of all the components on the car, the rear wing being covered up, front wings are covered up, as David Coulthard once again makes that long walk back. Well, there's a smile on his face. He doesn't seem to be desperately upset about it, but I'm sure the team will not be too happy. And that one clearly was down to David just trying so hard coming through 12 and not getting it right in 13. Again, Williams doing the same thing, immediately covering up all the aerodynamic parts in the car to keep it away from the prying eyes, not just of the television companies, but of those journalists who moonlight and take photographs for teams. Of course, all with digital cameras, and will be downloaded straight away and sent off to the respective teams' computers, probably within the space of about 15-20 minutes.
Modern technology, amazing what it can do, isn't it? There's the speed trap classification. Ralf Schumacher fastest across the speed trap, 304 kilometres per hour. McNish and Salo once again showing that Toyota have produced a pretty decent engine this year. Okay, they may be running a little less downforce, they may have a little less drag because there's less downforce on the car, but even so, Toyota's engine is a very, very impressive first effort for their first racing season. Did a lot of testing, of course, last year, and BMW and Mercedes and Ford will all have to be keeping a close eye on Toyota's progress. Michelin's fastest in this session, Rubens Barrichello though, and Michael Schumacher, as you said, John, I'm sure not showing exactly what they could do. Jenson Button there, Fisichella 8th, then the two Saubers in 9th and 10th positions. Behind them we then saw the first of the Toyotas, Mika Salo was 11th fastest, then Bernoldi, Arrows having their problems on and off, but Bernoldi setting the 12th fastest time. Heinz-Harald Frentzen managing to get out and have a reasonable run, he set the 13th fastest time ahead of De La Rosa, Jarno Trulli, then Takuma Sato, Eddie Irvine, Alan McNish, Jacques Villeneuve and Olivier Panis, and at the back Mark Webber and Alex Young for Minardi. Now Peter's got down in the pit lane, he's there with Gustav Brunner. Peter.
Gustav, yesterday when we spoke to you, you said you didn't think that you'd be able to reproduce that great performance, but after this session today it's not looking too bad.
Yeah, I still don't believe it completely, because 11th place sounds too good to us, and Mika Salo even said with a 10th quicker, which is in him, he would have been even 8th. I don't believe it completely, and I don't think we can repeat it, but I also hope we don't lose too many places in the afternoon. So if 12th, 13th, we would be very happy. I think it's going better than we expected.
Well, that's certainly true. Let's put lap times aside, talk about the car, the balance, the reliability.
Yes, our reliability was very good up to now, and really our aim is to finish the race, to see for both cars the flag. That is really what we are aiming this weekend here for.
And both drivers are happy with the handling?
Mika Salo is there with his setup. On McNish there's a little bit to do. I think he will also be better, probably 2, maybe even 3 places than what the result shows this morning.
Thanks very much, Gustav. Very good luck.
Thank you very much.
Gustav Brunner, who is the designer of the Toyota T102, this year's Toyota Formula One Challenger. David Coulthard is back with the engineers, and interestingly there you can see he's talking more fervently with the tyre engineers, because that's crucial as they get ready to go qualifying.
Yes, I'm just thinking about Adrian Newey when we saw that shot of him in the pit lane when David went off. The eyes rolled back in the head, and I suppose Adrian's going to have to debrief with David and say, well, what happened, David? But really, we all know what happened.
Let's take a look back over the highlights from this morning's free practice sessions in Malaysia.